when he retired in '79, but I am the first. And really it was my dad that got me into it because he was a drywaller and I was hanging sheetrock for $4 an hour. And a friend of mine literally said, "Hey, I'm joining the Navy, you want to?" And I said, "Yeah." So went down to the recruiter, signed the papers. He said, "You know this is going to put you on submarines." I said, "I don't care. I'm hanging sheetrock for $4 an hour. Get me out of here." Hi, my name is Brent Woolard. I was a submariner from 1985 till I retired in 2007. I did all boomer submarines, the ballistic missile subs, one older boat and 3 stints on Tridents. And I was a navigation guy, retired as a senior chief. The way we learn to be good submariners is from the guys on your first boat the day you check in. You're not going to get that experience anywhere other than being on a submarine. And so the quality of person teaching you will obviously matter. How much book study you do will help with that. But getting just a general understanding for the systems and putting them all together, and all the damage control equipment and procedures if something bad were to happen, those have to be ingrained in you early on for you to get your dolphins and become a qualified submariner. Obviously, a new guy getting on board, or now new gal, you're not gonna know, you're gonna be very dangerous because you're not gonna know what not to do, let alone what to do. So it's my understanding of the human experiences, as we gain new technologies, new knowledge to use them, we tend to push those envelopes fairly early, sometimes before they're safe. It's why people always look at a guy like Chuck Yeager as the test pilot was the most daring person, because these guys, they're trying something that's incredibly dangerous that nobody's ever done before, and if it goes wrong, they could die from it. The Columbia Space Shuttle was brought down by a faulty O-ring. So the bigger and the more aggressive we get at trying to break these boundaries, as far as going beneath the surface of the ocean, going up into space, flying in general, there's a lot of risk involved with that. And that requires higher attention to detail, especially with things that could hurt you. And then obviously you have all the sea pressure. We've lost 2 nuclear-powered submarines to accidents. Scorpion, they never have determined, or at least haven't told us what the cause was. The Thresher had some flooding, and then they had a faulty design in their emergency blow system, which allowed a lot of water in there. So when that air expanded to go in the ballast tanks, it froze up on some filters and prevented any more air from coming through. So we lost, I don't know, 170 people, I think 160 something that day. So it is dangerous. We can't really absorb more than 1 or 2 people being a problem while you're underway, and 1 is 1 too many, and they don't last. So the submarine force is voluntary, and you have to maintain a certain standard of behavior or you'll get tossed. And there is some screening that goes on for us to be able to go on the boats. And if you can't handle it, or if you really, really want to leave, you're gonna go. And I've had people check on board. One kid worked for me for a while that just would not conform, would not listen, and we're not asking anything more of anybody than we do of anybody else. He refused to do it. He didn't make it. He checked in while we were in a port call, and he was not on the boat when we came home. So it happens.
And I think
so when you leave the pier, communications with the outside world, except for naval messages, which are specific for the mission, all the other communications are gone. So all you have is each other at that point. Now, they're pretty good about sending scores to the Super Bowl, even while we're floating a wire or something for comms. Slowly, we'll get maybe 5 or 6 scores before the game's over, generally about 2 hours after it's all happened. We did one year the San Francisco, San Diego Super Bowl. We were off the coast of California and we were able to pick up a radio signal. We stayed at periscope depth and listened to the game on actual terrestrial radio, which was nice. But in general, you don't get anything. You'll get, via the Naval message system, your wives will get, I think at the time it was 8 familygrams per person. So they allow them to send a 40-word or whatever it is message that you can receive, but we can't send anything off the ship. Now I understand they have some, if they're in a certain state of readiness, they can actually transmit some emails back and forth. So that's good for them. But generally, when you're on mission, it's incoming only, and the non-official stuff is far and few between. My first patrol on the Nevada was in 1989, right before the collapse of the Soviet Union. And we, ballistic missile submariners, we were the frontline defense in deterrence at the time. And my first patrol was 78 days straight, no port call, and no fresh air. It was all air we made on our own. And as soon as we surfaced coming home and they popped the hatches, it was like, what is that smell? That's fresh air. So we had gotten so accustomed to the stale air on the boat that fresh air actually was kind of a little annoying there in the beginning. So your crew is going to be a diverse set of Americans. They're going to be diverse in where they came from, what kind of accents they speak with, their race, their ethnicity, their religion. I've pretty much seen them all. And it's funny, you watch the news, they make it sound like everybody's fighting each other, but not on the boats. We're all brothers. In my day, now brothers and sisters, I'm sure. Because you have to rely on all those guys as you go through your qual process. You need to go to the experts in those areas to get them to buy off on your knowledge, and in a lot of cases to teach it to you first before you ever even get the qualification for that.
That's exactly.
So in the military, right, our purpose is to destroy a lot of stuff without ourselves being destroyed, in the simplest of terms. I was fortunate enough to be in the National Guard in high school, so I got to go to Army boot camp in Fort Dix in June of 1984. Then when I went regular Navy, I had to go to Navy boot camp in July of '85. And I'll never forget this. This rings with me. Being in Army boot camp, they put us through the gas chamber, and it was I think they called it CS gas crowd control or something like that. And they brought you into a room, and there was 2 rows of people. The front row took their masks off, and it was thick in there, you could see it. And they immediately reacted, the snot and the coughing and all that. And the guys in the second row are looking at it going, oh no, that's what it's coming to be here in a few seconds. So then those guys leave the door, and the next group steps up, and another files behind them. Then us guys in the front, now we take our masks off. We get to feel what we just saw. And it's horrible, but you go through it once so you get it, you see it. And I'll never forget, this is the part I never forget that I tell my kids this story. Later, to graduate boot camp, we had to do this overnight thing where there was a squad of us and we had a compass and a map and we had to get to a certain point. Well, at some point in this, I smelled, and they're hitting us with flares and all this blanks and all this stuff. All of a sudden I get a whiff of CS gas, and my first instinct was to run in the opposite direction. And then I thought, no, and I reached in, I pulled my mask out and put it on. So part of operating in the environment of submarines or some other technologically potentially difficult arena is transferring wisdom and knowledge into what was instinct, so that those quick reactions of the right thing to do overtake the instinctual reactions to hide, run, and fight and all that. So I'll never forget that. But as far as like being on the boat, it's good to have a lot of seasoned veterans who have done it time and time again, and who have a full understanding of what their job and the people around them's job is, so that they can help keep everything on an even keel, so to speak. So when a submarine deploys for whatever mission, patrol, whatever, it's similar to all the other services when they deploy. I'm sure they all have their idiosyncrasies, but we're gonna leave for roughly 10, 12 weeks. We're not gonna have communications for the most part back home. If we have a port call, obviously in the middle of it, then we'll be able to make some phone calls or whatever. So part of the work up to leaving is, you know, once you've done it a few times, it becomes old hat. But like back in the day, I would write out checks and I would put them in a paper clip with what time, you know, what month and day to send these bills off or whatever. And things like that, when things weren't quite as automated as they are now. You're gonna miss some Christmases, you're gonna miss some kids' birthdays. Fortunately, I got to see both my children born, but some guys do miss a birth of the child, or gals, they won't miss it, but they'll miss other critical things, you know, anniversaries, stuff like that. So you kind of just have to accept it and be, you know, kind of understanding enough that between you and the wife or whatever, that if we're missing the anniversary because we're underway, then we'll have this weekend when we get back, we'll set something up and try to do a makeup for it. The traits of a good submariner is going to be somebody who can work well with others, who can listen, who won't block themselves off to learning new things from other people, and just understanding and accepting that you don't know everything and you have to rely on the people that you work with. My skipper on my first boat, Don Rockwell, was the captain of the Daniel Boone. He told me when I was a young third class, he said, "You could be the captain of this ship." And I said, "How? I don't know anything about this boat." He goes, "You don't need to. You just need to have people working for you that do." So as long as everybody does their part and it all feeds up, it works.
That's a really good one.
Not having a beer, not listening to a radio station, not smelling grass. Here it's early April, and started hearing the robins just a couple, 3 weeks ago, so it's something I pick up on. So as soon as I got home, I would kind of start hearing those things again, and that would really remind me of what I was missing. Things that I didn't think about while I was missing them until they came back.
The final question is, was it worth it?
Absolutely. I mean, we live in the greatest country the planet's ever seen, so it was my honor to do my part. I'd do it all over again.